What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
You don't know what that order is, Mr. Trash. I'd show you, but I'm too old. I'm too tired. I'm too fucking blind. If I were the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
We've said it once, we've said it twice, we've said it a million times. The truth shall I set you free. This is Tennis Get Off My Lawn, the mad ramblings of a Gen Xer. We want to talk about the desperate Howard Stern and his bid to stay relevant by creating his own firing rumors. It's almost the end of the summer here, and we're very excited about that because the kids are going back to school, so that's always going to be a lot of fun. And also, we're going to get a chance to be able to do not daily pods, but we're going to be able to do, pods maybe twice a week. I know we've said that in the past, but we have created some time to do these things. We freed up some other projects because we really enjoy doing I really enjoy doing this pod, and we actually have some guests that have requested to come on the show, and we are, according to FeedSpot, I think we are anywhere between the number 3 or the number 6 most popular Gen X show on podcast form. So you know what? We got to keep this party rolling. And that's what Howard Stern's been doing since 1981. He's been trying to keep the party rolling. He's been trying to stay relevant from Detroit to Washington to New York to simulcasting in Philadelphia to basically going all over terrestrial radio to then heading over to the likes of SiriusXM. And one of the biggest contracts ever for a DJ host or shock jock or whatever you want to label him. He's been labeled many things. He's always clamored for that acceptance. Going back from writing his first book to the movie to America's Got Talent. He's always wanted to be mainstream. He's always wanted to have that mainstream. When he first started out, he was Rebel Radio. He was the anti-Don Imus. Ooh, when he went to WNBC, he was shaking up the system. Well, the problem is when you hit a certain age, like 71, you start becoming the system. You start becoming what you claim to hate. And we've said this before. We did an episode months ago that he's basically Don Imus. He sees the wolves of Joe Rogan and others at, not only clamoring at the door, but passing him in reference to downloads and viewers and listenerships. Howard Stern went from having millions of views and listens a day, or I should say millions of listens a day over on SiriusXM radio, listeners a day. He's now down to, they're saying, about 100,000. His contract's coming up. So what happened? XM said, yes, we are going to offer Howard a deal. The problem is we're not going to offer him anywhere near what we gave him when he first came over here to SiriusXM in 2006. Or that second contract. We're not going to offer him anything that big because there's no way we can keep paying that salary because we've gone from millions of people listening to a day to maybe 100,000. We've gone from this controversial shock jock who shook the establishment to this guy that now is this pretty much a softball interview to the liberal left. And there's, he's alienated his own listenership by saying Donald Trump supporters don't listen. Well, when that's more than 50+% of the population and they hear you and they do it, you need to find a way to stay relevant. So with his new contract coming up, he's got to find a way to keep the money train rolling. He has said before he's nowhere close to being near retirement. So when the rumors came out that SiriusXM was potentially going to fire Howard Stern, and really they wouldn't even be firing him, they just would not be renewing his contract, that they were going to fire him, there was a little bit of a uproar. It made media headlines that he was going to get fired because his numbers right now are pathetic. So all of a sudden, SiriusXM came out and said that I don't know where this is. Just recently, just came out and said, I don't know where this is coming from. We plan to make Stern an offer when his contract ends in the fall. That's basically what they said. We plan to make him an offer, but it's not going to be anywhere near it. So it turns out that most of these rumors and speculation about him getting fired were created by Stern himself and the Stern camp to stay relevant. He's basically a rotting corpse when it comes to this new medium. Not even a new medium in podcast format and YouTube, on Rumble, all these other channels you can go. He's a dinosaur. So it turns out that his own camp has come out and basically put out the rumors that he was going to get fired. Not that SiriusXM did not want to invest anymore in the show, that they were going to fire him. And it was kind of a pathetic attempt and on a viral scale to get people to tune back in. That's all it was. I mean, his numbers are so low right now. He is trying to generate anything he can to get people to listen again, to become relevant. And in my mind, this is just a desperate hoax. That it's one of those things that you are 71 years old. You've been in this game since 81. You know, sometimes sometimes it's
draft.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Sometimes it's welcome to the party. And sometimes it's time just to leave the party. But he has said that I'm not going to retire. And evidently, he hates podcasters. He hates the likes of Joe Rogan, who gets millions of views and downloads a day. He evidently hates Alex Cooper of Call Her Daddy, who's also now on SiriusXM, that he basically avoids her like the fucking plague because he feels that these people aren't as talented as he is. Well, you may have been talented when you were doing Butt Bongo Fiesta. You may have been talented when you were doing US Open Swords or the Channel 9 show. You may have been relevant when you were with Sherman Hemsley and Blackface. Well, that's probably not a good thing. How he didn't get canceled for that, and it's not the first time Howard Stern wore blackface. I don't know how he didn't get canceled for that. But it's one of these things that he hates these podcasters, because he doesn't feel they're as talented as him. But they're on this new media, it's not even new, that allows them to reach millions of people a day, millions of downloads, millions of views. And he is befuddled to the fact that he can't figure out how this is fucking happening, how these people that have less talent than he does, or perceived to have less talent than he does, can be this popular. The idea is this. You had a $500 million contract with SiriusXM. You're not bringing in the revenue. You're not bringing in the subscribers, the paid subscribers to XM Radio. You are not bringing in the advertisers that you once did. You have become this hardline Democrat who's basically severed relationships with anyone that's conservative, especially Donald Trump, who had been on your show multitudes of times so you could bring on the likes of Steve Colbert. You are 71 years old. You're probably where you want to be financially. So once you reach that pinnacle, and I always think of it this way, and I always thought Howard Stern went down maybe after he got rid of Artie Line, that he has gone downhill since he's gotten more money. And it's one of those things, you become complacent once you get that paycheck. Once you get that big paycheck, once you are secured for life, sometimes people are just like, hey, listen, I'm at the pinnacle now. There's nowhere to go but down. I have enough money to secure myself for my family and myself. Why do I have to keep doing this? Well, sometimes it's the ego that drives you. That's what drove Don Imus. The ego of Don Imus drove him into becoming what he was at the end, the shell of himself. This bitter old man who was once the darling in the early mid-70s and early 80s, the darling of New York radio, that was the voice of his generation. But sometimes, like I said, the generation gets old. And Howard Stern in his 70s was never a Gen Xer. Was never he was a baby boomer. He was a guy that kind of related to the Gen X because of what he did and how he spewed things and how he spoke truth. which led to millions of people listening a day, starting first in, like I said, Detroit and then Washington, then New York, then simulcasting in Philadelphia. So he had millions of viewers a day. And now it's reported he has less than 125,000 listeners a day. That's a big drop for someone with his type of ego. And like I said, when you all of a sudden alienate and become woke and alienate half of your listeners, and I love it because he said it back in 2003. By the way, I kind of take that the compliment that I'm woke. He fired back on his radio show. I'll tell you how I feel about it. To me, the opposite of woke is being asleep. And that means I can't get behind Trump, which is what I think it means, or support people who want to be transgender. I do support people, who want to be transgender. Or I am the vaccine dude. Call me woke, you fucking once. And that's just crazy. You can't go out and attack half your core audience. And, it's you go out and attack the unvaccinated. And there were people for multiple reasons that didn't want to get vaccinated. And it turned out that not getting vaccinated for some was probably a great idea, because these vaccinations, these RMM vaccinations, are actually DNA altering vaccinations. And I'll get into that one day, because I have a lot of friends that are in the bio industry, who are biologists, who are chemists, who are professors, who've talked about the DNA altering effect of getting multiple vaccines. But we'll get into that one day. But he became what he said that he hated. Howard Stern did. He became that person. And he continues to be that person over and over again. And it's just getting worse. There's no Jackie Martling anymore. It hasn't been for years. Artie Lang, I stopped listening to the show when Artie Lang left, because I was like, I'm done. I mean, like I said, it was fun. It was cutting edge. It was water cooler material to talk about as you drove in. As you drove in, you sometimes would be 15, 20 minutes late to work because you were in the middle of a Howard Stern segment and you didn't want to leave the car. And there was no way, unless you had a radio in your office, that you could listen. But it's not that way anymore. With these podcasts, people just, like I said, podcasts, you download them. You just download the podcast, and what do? You listen to it at your leisure. You listen to it at your lunchtime. Now you can have your computer in your office. You just listen to these podcasts as you're working. You don't whistle while you work. You listen to Joe Rogan while you work. That's bad whistling. I need to drink some water today. But he hasn't caught up with the new media. And I don't think he ever will. Had to have some. Had a little ASMR. Had a little Black Rifle coffee there. It's sad though. For all the times, like I said, he made fun of Don Imus. For all the times he ridiculed Mr. Imus because he was the old fart of radio. Well, the old fart of radio is now 71 years old and creating hoaxes about his own demise, so he could turn around and figure out a way to stay relevant. We did a pod the other day where we talked about the 50th anniversary of Jaws and how Jaws at times as a kid scared the bejesus out of me, because I was a youngster when Jaws came out. And I was thinking about it the other day because this movie came on and there was a made-for-TV movie with Bernie Casey. And it was a horror film that was, I don't remember, it was Scott Glenn of The Right Stuff fame and a bunch of other movies in the 80s was in it. And it was a film that when you were 5-6 years old, it really, even add the fact that the effects back then were even considered to be bad, but it was just this film that just scared the bejesus out of me as a kid. I can remember sitting in my parents' unfinished basement with the black and white television, using the pliers to turn the channels and having the Reynolds wrap over the antennas to make sure you can create a better reception. And when this movie came on, even if it was 2:00 in the afternoon, you had to watch it. But at the end, you were running up the stairs from the scary basement because you were afraid these monsters were going to get you. That movie, of course, was Gargoyles. Not to be confused with the early 2000 series Gargoyles, which wasn't bad. But this was a movie in reference to a father and a daughter who were basically biologists that are on this expedition in this far out towns in the desert, and they come across these gargoyles. And these gargoyles appear every 400 years. And they again, it's one of those theories. It's one male that impregnates multiple females, and they create all these eggs. So basically what happens is every 400 years, mankind has to destroy these gargoyles so they don't take over the earth because they multiply so quickly. This is probably going back to the Knights of the Round Table as well, when they took over, when they initially first appeared. So the gargoyles are reappearing. The gargoyles are coming back to life. And it was the fact that the original have you ever seen Land of the Lost, the original Land of the Lost? The Sleestaks were, as a kid, were scary, but not that really scary. These gargoyles were like that, except for Bernie Casey's gargoyle. He had these eyes, and he had this deep melodious voice that just kind of scared the crap out of you when you were a kid. And you would see him coming, and he talked about taking over mankind and destroying the earth and ruling the earth and making men slaves. And it was his presence in this horrible costume and these horns that just scared the shit out of you as a kid. And I'm watching this show, and I'm watching this movie. And I can remember watching this like 1 o'clock in the afternoon on channel 17, and then seeing this guy and finishing the movie and literally leaving the lights on in the basement and running upstairs because you were so scared after watching this film. Well, I watched it again for the first time probably in about 30 years. It was on one of these horror channels. And I watched it again. And I'm watching this film, and I love it because my youngest son comes downstairs, and he goes, and I'm watching this. And this is how desensitized kids are now. He goes, "What are you watching?" I'm watching this movie called Gargoyle. It scared the crap out of me as a kid. He looked at it. Now remember, this was a childhood trauma. This was something that made me sleep with a nightlight, made me sleep with the lights on for weeks after watching it. My son comes downstairs. He looks at it. And he goes, "Well, that just sucks. That's not scary." And he went back upstairs. So I'm thinking to myself, really, this literally caused me trauma. And now my son is making fun of me for watching it. It's just one of those days. It's just one of those things. Like I mentioned before, we're going to starting next week, because that's when the kids go back to school. The kids go back to school early here. We're going to make sure we're going to try to do at least 2 pods a day. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We're also going to be on YouTube and Rumble. We have been, but we haven't been posting a lot lately because we've just been a little busy because of the summertime. But like I said, I really do enjoy doing this pod. And as always, just remember the truth shall always set you free. This is Tim, Get Off My Lawn, the mad ramblings of a Gen Xer. And I'm out of here.